questions are really, really great. We even spent a bit of extra time in the last session. We spent a bit longer. And so this time around, we'll try and get a bit more time for the questions in. But I don't want to take up any more time of actual learning for both you guys and myself. So I'll hand over to Megs. Megs, if you can just take over, maybe a quick intro for the guys who may be joining for the first time today, and then we're good to go.
Happily. Thank you so very much. Fabulous to see everyone again, for those that have joined us before, and a warm welcome to those who it's their first session. My name is Megan Nethercott, and I'm joined by my colleague Sherry today, whose name is on the screen is Amira, but you can call her Sherry. She goes by both. We are from an organization called Fine for Good. And Fine for Good fundamentally spends our days thinking about how we build brands in the for good sector. We really believe in the power of branding and communication to help elevate brands, elevate, and often in the for good sector generate fundraising and funding, because that's what sustainability looks like in this world. And we are a mix of marketers, communicators, and brand experts that put together campaigns. We do have a corporate business, so we've got an organization called Fine Consulting, and so we take the learnings from the corporate sector and certainly apply them to those brands that are doing good in the world. How we found ourselves here today is we've been going through a series of sessions which we've called Branding 101. Branding is pretty nebulous, and it's a little bit how long is this piece of string. So we started with the basics around brand story development, thinking about some of the things that you need to know and the discipline of branding, some of the tricks, tips and tricks that we have in our book. Zamo has those presentations and those recordings if you're interested in them. But where we find ourselves today is this very critical question that sits within communication and within branding, and it's this idea of fundraising. And so Sherry and I will take you through some slides today that are really our learnings around how to do this. It is 101, so I know that many of you, this is your world, this is where you become the experts. So I will ask that if there is anyone in the audience today who's had any successes, there is a component of the talk where you tell us what actually lands on the ground. I think there's huge learnings that can potentially come from everybody on the call today. So we'll give you our view of the world. Sherry and I will present together, because often I am the individual sitting on, call it the agency side or the marketing side, that's developing a lot of these proposals or case for supports or fundraising documents. Sherry has the unique position of being on both sides of the coin, and she reviews these documents. So I think what's also interesting is to get a view from the other side and how it feels when these documents land. So Sherry and I will tag team today, and you'll hear two different voices. As always, if you have questions, we will leave quite a bit of time at the end to do specific questions, but you're welcome to pop anything in the chat as it comes up. So without further ado, let me get my presentation going and hope tech likes me today. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, which is really around the definition of fundraise. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I think one of the questions we always ask the organizations, and Sherry can give her views on this as well, but we need to make sure that we have an understanding of the fundraising landscape. We know that each of these audience wants different things, and there are nuances between them, and Sherry will talk to that now for us. But fundamentally, at the base of all of this, we know that there are many more, but for the purpose of today, we know that there is individual money, there's philanthropic kind of money, there's family trusts, there's money that comes essentially from individuals. We know that corporates are a big source of funding, and we know that they've got a very specific kind of desire and a need set when they come into the fundraising space. And then you've got your traditional foundations or grant makers, and we can call this multiple different things. But I think, Sherry, I'll ask you to join in here and just give us a bit of a view around diversifying the sources of funding as a starting point, so that we don't, as we say, put all our rands and cents in one basket.
Thank you, Meg, and welcome everybody. It's so exciting to see so many different NGOs on the platform. Just a little bit of background from me before I get into the funding, that I actually am a social worker by profession. I have a PhD in social work and specifically have looked in the NGO sector at where legislation meets actual practicality. So for me, this is particularly interesting, and I feel very passionate about NGO work and enabling NGOs to do the wonderful work that you do. I think funding is one of the things that mostly is the stumbling block for people in the NGO sector, and it's often where we sadly see the end of the good work. So in terms of funding, I'm really going to encourage people to ask some of those of you who haven't seen Meg's original, her first two in the series, to go back and look, because you really do need to know your brand before you start asking for money. Why we don't put all our eggs in one basket is because often we get a particular bundle of money from somewhere to start an NGO, and we feel like this is where our money is going to keep coming from. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, the donor dries up, immigrates, ends, changes direction, and we left there with all our needs and no money to meet them. So it's really important that we don't put all the eggs in one basket, and we talk to the specific donors that we want to think about. So as you see in Meg's slide, there are individuals. And when you think about asking individual people for monthly debit orders or for once-off donors, you are looking to pull at their heartstrings. You want to talk to the person and say, this is why you should be giving us a little bit of your money every month. Corporates, you need to know what you're asking them for. So there's always a flavor of the month, a particular genre that corporates speak to. Go and look at what they are asking for and see if it actually matches what you're doing. And then obviously they're foundations and grant makers. And again, don't go asking foundations that have nothing to do with your NGO for money. Look for the right one and match your need and explain what it is that you are doing and why this so speaks to their need to give money. Once you match correctly, your chances of getting the money completely go up exponentially.
Okay, so I think as we've done before, there's often we want to dive into a task, whether it's developing a campaign or developing a fundraising proposal in this instance. But I think what we've learned and what branding teaches us is that initial pause and that thought process before you put pen to paper or start your PowerPoint slides or whatever the medium may be. And again, just some tips and tricks. This is very high level and 101. But it sounds quite obvious. But first and foremost, define what funding you're actually going after. And that both has an internal lens and an external lens. We find that the more broad and the more vague a fundraising proposal is, both from the ask, so get really specific around what you want to raise funds for, and matching it to the funder, that's the magic sauce, right? So there is potentially some work needs to be done on the ground beforehand to get the numbers right. If you're raising 100,000 Rand for Project X, define if it is actually 100,000. Is it maybe 500,000? Is it 3 tranches of 50,000? I'm totally making up the numbers, but get the story straight essentially and define what you're going after first and foremost. As Sherry said, who are you targeting this proposal at? We'll get into a little bit more detail, but the one size fits all is the absolute make or break of proposal writing. So have a think. Where are you targeting this? Do some research. Go and think about where this proposal is going to land. And then in parallel, because often we see this happening, we start the process, we start writing the proposal, and then we realize, oh gosh, where's the data sources? Where's the tracking? Where's the quotes? Where are the beautiful stories? So even before you put pen to paper, or start typing, some of these questions to start mulling over in your mind are a very, very good starting point. I think what we've done is we've got a couple of checklist kind of pointers. We acknowledge that we're talking to a very varied audience today, and so we've tried to make it appropriate to everyone. We will leave lots of time for very specific questions at the end. But I think just to start, here are a couple of pointers just to get us going, and I'll let Sherry jump in here.
I wanted to thank you, Meg. I just want to say before that proposal writing can be very daunting, but it actually is the beginning of an amazing adventure in terms of your own tale about your organization, because often we're so immersed in the need that we don't actually have time to look at what needs to be prioritized, what are we actually doing, where are our shortcomings. When you start writing down the proposal, and if you get the proposal completely right, it is really like mapping out a roadmap for your organization, where you want it to go and where you are right now. So don't be intimidated by writing proposals. Just take it with two hands and see it as an opportunity to really have a good review of where you're at in your organization. So just to go back to the synergy, where is the synergy? Make sure that you're matching your language. When there's a tender that goes out, or a grant, or you're looking particularly at asking for someone specific for money, have a look at their website. It really is worth taking time to just see what particularly they're asking for, or what kind of language that they're using, and to match that language with your ask. Explain exactly what you're going to be doing. And as Meg says, it's not a one size fits all, because if you just take a standard proposal and you change the name every time for who you're asking to, you really are going to fall short. You need to be very, very familiar with their landscape, with the landscape of the organization or company you're asking for, before you get into that actual writing of the proposal.
A trick that I often do is I'm old school, so I print it out and I take my actual little highlighter. You definitely don't have to do this part, but in whatever format you do, take some of the content, the actual RFP, the whatever it is, the tender, and I go and I highlight some of the keywords that I can find in that proposal. And then when I'm writing my response to that, I make sure that the actual language aligns. It just gives the proposal itself the same flavor that whichever funder is viewing it, they start to think, okay, these guys know what they're talking about, but you're actually just using their own language. So I think that's just, again, starting point is make sure the flavor of the ask matches the flavor of the proposal. And a lot of that has got to do with language. The second thing that we often see is, and I know this is around capacity, and I know this can be a challenge, but I'm willing to stand on my soapbox with this one because it works every single time. Ask yourself who needs to be involved in this writing process. We often in our, and Sherry will attest to this, about 10 times a day in our space, we go, okay, hold on. Are you being the ref or the player? Are you being the ref and the player? If you are creating and generating content, you need to get somebody else's eyes on this thing. If you don't have someone in your organization, if you're going solo, find a volunteer, find a stakeholder, find someone who you can sense check the document, both from a thinking perspective, how does it land? Does this make sense? And then also don't make silly mistakes. So getting someone to proof your document, the most off-putting thing for a funder is to spot a typo, is to spot a silly mistake, and it absolutely takes the wind out of the sails of the whole document. So it probably will look a little bit different in the spaces and places in your organizations, but use this ref player analogy both in the thinking component and in the kind of quality control component of the proposal writing. Number 3, and this is a trap we all fall into, is we get so excited and we want to prove ourselves so diligent that we just chuck it all in. We have to keep it short. We have to hold those principles of single-minded messaging and structuring in our minds when we're doing this proposal writing. And we need to make sure that we're not submitting 50, 60, 70, 80 page documents that have got every appendix and every piece of evidence that we've ever had in the mix. We have a rough 10-page rule. Is sometimes way less is appropriate. But if we know that if we send too much information up front, people switch off before they've even begun, and then the battle's lost. So again, the discipline of structuring and sorting up front so that we stand ourselves in with a better chance. We've titled this one Ask Before You Ask, and that's not a typo. It really is a trick that we use often. This idea of what we would call insight gathering, you may call it conversations, you may call it kind of market understanding. But if at all possible, find someone who's in that space and ask them before we start writing cold. Whatever conversations you can have, whatever information you can glean, try and get a sense. And this is often more in the space of kind of case for support. So case for support is when the organization will generate a fundraising ask outside of a specific RFP or a specific tender. This is what we would like, and we're putting it out to the world. Go and understand where, as Sherry said, what's the flavor of the month? What do funders currently think is important? Where are their heads at? What is their appetite for funding certain things? We know that funding goes through these cycles. We're in an ESG space, we're in a gender space, we're in multiple kind of fundraising trends. How can you align yourself to those trends and still remain true to your core ask? And if you can't get access to funders, ask your volunteers, ask any stakeholder that's willing to spend a little bit of time with you, and just again, sense check and open up that kind of thinking process. We find it hugely, hugely beneficial in our business. Often when there is a very large fundraising ask, we will pause the writing component and we will pause the proposal development component and actually do what we call insight gathering up front. 5 conversation, 5 cups of coffees, whoever we can get hold of. And hands down, without a doubt, it always amplifies our thinking. So whoever you can get access to, definitely add that into the thinking mix before we actually put pen to paper again. And then a last one, and the example on the right-hand side is just a publicly available. I found it on the internet, so no disservice to this organization. And it's very old, so I'm not too worried about that. But I think there's some fundamental don'ts that we also need to make sure that, again, before we jump into the water, this idea of lots of words on a page, we are seeing time and time again that even the best among us and the most diligent, the attention spans are dwindling at a rate never seen before. So I think we need to find ways to keep our ask short and sweet, make it more visual. I think imagery is absolutely crucial. Often we get so caught up in the words and the narrative that we forget to put pictures of the communities we serve. They don't have to be beautiful, expensive photo shoots. Take your smartphone and go and get some shots. Go and make sure that visually the piece that we're creating talks to the community and the environment that we're in. And then just this idea of not too many fonts and not too many things going on the page from a design perspective. You don't need the whole kitchen sink. Short, sharp, clean is often the best path to kind of clarity from a branding perspective. So again, no disservice to this organization, but they pretty much did it all wrong here. At a glance, I can't really figure out who they're serving. This is page 1 of many. I've got to go and really do quite a lot of hard work around figuring out who they are. So just a bit of a pointer as where we don't want to land. Okay, so I don't know, Sherry, if there's any kind of closing thoughts around some of the thinking processes before we dive into structuring and creating these.
I think, Meg, you've covered what the thinking in what needs to happen before. I think we're going to get into that next phase of actually putting pen to paper. So let's get onto that slide and then I'll add in there.
Okay. I just want to pause. I am sharing on full screen. Are there any questions or any thoughts at this point? I'll just give a moment's pause.
Please feel free to type them in the chat or just to raise your hand so Megs know that you got a question.
Okay. Okay. Someone, you can just help me out if there's any in the chat.
No, we look good for now, Megs. I think you can carry on.
Okay. So,
Oh, wait, actually, just as we're about to
no
carry on,
problem.
Philippa,
There we go.
Philippa just
Philippa,
raised her
go
hand.
for it.
Philippa, please go ahead with your question. Philippa, if you're asking your question, you're still muted. Please just unmute yourself for us. Okay, I think
Hello,
Philippa.
sorry,
Oh,
sorry,
there we
guys.
go. There we go.
I'm trying to figure out how to work this. So yeah, I did have a question. My question was around okay, it's a two-part question. Best practice with regards to the best time of year to send through funding applications, because I don't know whether it should be at the end of the financial year as you starting the next year. Is there a cycle that you know, does it differ from business to business or from corporation to corporation or whatever? That's the one thing. So I guess is when is the best time to send off those applications? And then just my second question was, if you you ladies are just giving such valuable information. I'm soaking everything in, and I'm so sorry I missed the first two sessions, but I'm wanting to know your go-to resources. If there are websites, or if there are databases, or if there are your kind of gold nugget resources that us as fundraisers can access, and if at all possible that you don't have to pay for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Let me just answer the first part of them. I wish there was a beautiful calendar which we could kind of plug into. Sadly, it's not. The best success we've had is I'm talking corporates, right? Philanthropic and foundation stuff is a bit different. Corporates each have different financial year ends. So that's the tricky part. You need to figure out when their financial year ends. And then you definitely want to be ahead of that next cycle. So we can't always, some companies run January to December. So definitely around October, you want to be getting in for the next financial year. But some of them run June to June, for instance. So unfortunately, it's a bit of it's not such a easy answer, but I think align yourself to the cadence of the financial year. And the holy grail is always an actual human being. And I know that's hard, and I know that's what we're all looking for. But if you can find one actual human in an organization who can be your point of contact, one conversation with them is worth 1,000 hours trying to sift through websites and figure things out. So I don't think it's an easy answer, but that's just how we do it. We will really try our best to get someone in that department who can give us insight, because once you know it once, you can always loop back.
So you're
Sherry,
saying we actually need to get hold of somebody at the organizer, at the corporate, and ask them
yeah.
when is the best time to. Well, I suppose you first need to find out, are they accepting applications, or are they accepting proposals? Because
Yeah.
sometimes they know we're at capacity. We're not taking any more funding applications. We are, So you first got to find out that, and then you can ask, I suppose, when is the best time to send in? Right.
Totally. Yeah. I think in the era of algorithms and websites submitting things by these portals, for sure, but that's often the way it lands at the end of the day. But by far and large, having a human being on the end of the lines is your biggest precursor to success. Sherry, you had a thought.
I wanted to just add to that, Meg, that Philippa, if you're looking for funding, you need to do what Meg said, and take that time to do a little bit of research before and see which companies align with what you do, and then make a point person, someone in their CSR department or wherever it is, to have that meeting and say, look, this is what we do. Let me know how your funding works and when's a good time to submit. The relationship actually becomes key, because they're getting proposals on their table all the time. You have to be the wow factor and connect with someone so that they know that there's someone behind that proposal and what you actually do. So I think it is really worth what Meg's saying, that, make the relationship. And that does take a little bit of research before, to make sure that you're not wasting your time. There's no point in going to a foundation that only sponsors legal stuff when you're doing something completely different or whatever it is. So just take that time to do the research.
Super. And then I think just to close off the last part, kind of resources and that we use, I will send you some of the, we often look international. So there's lovely, the organizations that do quite similar to what we do, whereas they are kind of fundraising focused at NGOs. They will often have a section that says tools or resources. And so I'm very happy. I will share some of the ones that I use. They're not copy paste, unfortunately, but they're definitely fundraising template examples where they essentially give you the summary page and then you can put your bits and pieces in from there. There's quite a lot of design tools these days. Even if you go into a PowerPoint or a Canva, or they will have sort of templates from a design perspective. So happy to share all the tricks that we've got. We will get into a template and a structure today, certainly not designed, but hopefully if we go through all of this, it will tick some of the boxes. So hopefully that solves your ask. I think
Thanks,
we did
Megs.
have
And then
another
before
question.
you go, there is another. I don't know, Nicolette. I saw your hand was up, but I see it's dropped. So I'm not sure if it was like a mistake on your end.
Hi, good morning. It's Nicolette from Autism Connect. Hi, Zamu. It's nice to see you for the first time because I happen to always miss these sessions, and what a great session. Thank you for this
It's a
platform.
pleasure. It's such a pleasure, Nicolette.
I just wanted to thank you, Nicole, for what you're sharing. So a lot of I must say, I do, because we work with autistic, we work with autistic young children and teenagers. And that's part of my work to obviously source funding. And we're busy with a big project at the moment to source funding for a piece of land that we are buying through the city, and obviously building as well. So Zamu, thank you. I know it was a lot of back and forth, just to get our support, case for support onto the platform. And yes, once again, thank you. So we hope we can source a big funder. And I just wanted to latch onto the question that Philippa also asked now. It's really about getting to know, literally doing your homework. I am not a professional by doing funding proposals and all of that. I've literally, just by attending some of these master classes over time, just to get these key nuggets from the presenters. And I just wanted to share, because it's asking, are there any success stories? Because we are on such a big fundraising drive to source this future center we want to build is costing us 10 million. We were fortunate to, or we are fortunate to be working alongside an architect that is just so amazing. He says it's his passion project, to be building a center in the Mitchells Plain area of this nature. And I just have got a link. This is just earlier this year, because most of the funders, and I must say 2023 was a hard year. We hardly got any funding in. But this year, I just happened to put for instance, Zamu, the document that we forwarded to you to have this, the case for support. And I got a link through someone, and it was with the APSA Trust, or they work with different trusts. And I just sent her the document earlier this year, and it was fortunate because obviously with year end being February each year, and she said, and I made contact, and she says, Nicolette, just send it in before the end of the month, which was in February. And I sent it mid-Feb, and lo and behold, I just happened to follow up in the end of April or something, and we were afforded 100,000 rand, which it really knocked me off my sock, because it was just so unexpected. But the one key thing I want to just leave here is, it's that, just there was a person I could speak to and connect with, and not just, randomly, now who do you contact in this department, because that is very daunting. And now, I have a contact person now that we want to, we can only look at sending a proposal next year again, So, yeah, my job is quite stretched because I run operations. I see to the staff. We don't have the luxury to have a designated fundraiser on our, in our organization. So I do all of these things. But I must say, it's, as you get into it, you get to learn these things that you need to be doing. And over time, I have presenters have said what Nicole Demas said here this morning is, don't send these long-winded proposals and that. And yes, and the pictures says a lot. So that's one of the key things I have learned, when I put a document together. My document is literally just one page, and then it's, tell the story. So that's just my
Great, thank you.
part. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, but
Thanks,
beautiful,
So the hand
beautiful
being signed
segue.
by Dr. Bobbert.
And then I just wanted to just point out there is a resource. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who's receiving feedback. Can you guys also hear that?
Okay. I don't.
Can I just remind everybody just to mute themselves,
Look,
please, guys?
They're made for sprint.
Okay, I'm going to mute
Thanks,
everybody
Vanessa.
again because I'm not sure who it is. All right. Make sure please just unmute yourself when you guys go. I just wanted to pick up from the chat before we miss out these points. Mika from the Global Hub Mika from the Global Hub or Hub Global, I'm not sure, just said, just a note that stats are so useful in branding and funding. A quick breakdown of your stats helps the funders see your impact. So I think that's just a nice note that they're adding. And then also Nicole just shared with us a website where we can go check out. I think it's fundraising tools or either places to look for funds. It's called Funds for NPOs. So you guys can also have a look at that. It's called Funds for NPOs. And also another resource that was shared was Inyathelo. So if you guys can also have a look at those resources, I'll put them also in my email when I share these slides as well. But just as a heads up, there are those free resources you can reach out to. Next, let me hand over back to you again.
Fantastic. Okay. So I think, I mean, and thank you. That was the perfect segue around kind of success. And I wanted to ask, and maybe you can drop for the purpose of time. I want to just make sure we've got some additional time for questions. But if there are any things that worked for you, pop them in the chat and share them with everyone. I think the nuggets are so helpful. Certainly, I think Nicolette reiterated this idea of having an actual human being to talk to. I think that relationship is key, and keeping it short and sweet. So I'm going to move on to something a little bit more practical now. I want to show you a piece of work we did. There are many fundraising kind of formats and opportunities. So I am not suggesting that this is the only way to do it and it's the holy grail. But I want to show you some of those methodologies put into practice. This was an organization, Wits Donald Gordon Medical Institute, and we had to put a fundraising brochure to them. So I'm not going to get into the detail, but I just want to show you practically how we sometimes play these things out. You'll see kind of some design on the beginning, talking to this is Donald Gordon is really all about these medical experts and about training the next generation of super specialists, which we are in dire need of in our country. So we are very acutely aware of putting the faces of Donald Gordon on all our collateral. Often an endorsement from some kind of leadership. So in this instance, it was the CEO. You can take your story and you can frame it in the first person. And again, put a face to it, put a name to it so that there is credibility both in what you're saying and who is saying it. So some kind of quote from a founder or a CEO is very helpful up front. There is this, and we've spoken about it previously, there is this idea of what is often called strength-based communication or strength-based positioning. Often what happens in fundraising proposals, we get stuck in the need and we say how the size of the problem and the depth of the problem. You do need to put that out there. But what we did in this instance, which worked really well for us, is we went straight to why this organization was the right partner. In this instance, for the future of South Africa healthcare, but you can put your own organization in here. And again, you'll see we did everything in the first person because a big selling point for this organization is the current specialists and the current experts. So I'm not going to get into detail, but how this all starts to wrap up, and we'll take you through the template, is you can see it's very visual. You can see it's short and sharp. You do need to give people specifics on how they can actually give. And then we went into a little bit more of a detail around impact and how they can be part of this change. So I just wanted to show you an actual document. There's probably many other ways to do this, but keep it visual. If you can shift from paragraphs into more infographic kind of information design, that goes a long way. And make sure you've got statements and quotes, either from experts within your organization, and definitely some kind of view of the community. So that was one example. Another example, and something we probably haven't spoken about enough, is the absolute magic that is video. I know video that comes with cost implications, and it's not always accessible to everyone. But I just want to show you an example of how this organization, Reach for a Dream, packaged up an ask. You'll see this was for kind of virtual headsets, but just start to have a look at some how this plays out visually in a video format. And if someone can just give me a thumbs up, I'm hoping that my sound plays. Hold on one second.
Megs, the sun started and stopped. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be sound on here now, but we aren't getting any at the moment.
Reach for a Dream believes in the
we're
magic
good
of
now.
making dreams come true and has worked to fulfill the dreams of children fighting life-threatening illnesses in South Africa for 32 years. However, the reality of 2020 and the global pandemic has left many dreamers desperately waiting for their dreams to be fulfilled, and many of them unable to experience their ultimate dream due to their prognosis or condition. This unprecedented time has forced Reach for a Dream to adapt to a new normal. And now, Reach for a Dream is thrilled to announce the launch and introduction of virtual reality experiences. These experiences have been developed by Eden, a company that specializes in hardware, content, and platform-based VR solutions. The state-of-the-art solution is designed to make specific experiences come true in a magical way, while at the same time keeping human touch to a bare minimum to ensure the safety of the children. Through virtual reality, the boundaries are bridged, and children in isolation will be able to immerse themselves in a world that allows for escapism, creativity, and freedom. The idea is not to replace the actual dream, but to make otherwise impossible experiences come true with the power of VR, and at the same time ensuring the safety of our dreams, and ultimately enabling our dream children to dream. This innovative and cutting-edge technology is specifically being utilized for dreamers in waiting in hospitals. The dream experience itself could be anything from swimming with dolphins and riding a mountain bike to visiting Disney World or seeing the Eiffel Tower. The options are endless. The Reach for a Dream VR kit boasts a state-of-the-art virtual reality headset, branding and placement case, VR cover facial interface and foam replacement, as well as skin-friendly HMD cleaning wipes, which is neatly packed in a hard travel case with foam. Reach for a Dream is looking to make more VR kits accessible and available to many more dream children across South Africa. And with your help, we believe we can. Foundation is inviting content providers and sponsors who are willing to invest in this project to get in touch. Together, we totally can make dreams come true.
Okay, I'll stop it there. What's beautiful about this is they conveyed a huge amount of information, all the product specific stuff, all the details, and they did it in probably under 2 minutes. So I know that video is not always attainable, but if in any way that there is a potential stretch or a potential investment for some of your bigger fundraising asks, video is a really, really powerful tool from a fundraising perspective. It also translates beautifully into social media, and you will definitely get leverage from a video in other platforms. Okay, so that's a little bit around just some examples. Now let's get into some practicalities. This is what I would call a wireframe. It is certainly not exhaustive, and there are probably components that are specific to your environment that we have missed out. It's also generic in the sense of it could be a fundraising brochure, it could be a case for support, it could be the start of a response to an RFP. But if we had to boil it down, these are some of the fundamentals that we would always make sure is in any of our fundraising asks. Number one actually is an overarching concept. And often we find that it is quite interesting if you create some kind of metaphor for your fundraising proposal. We did one for a large university in South Africa who was having a centenary, and the overarching theme for their case for support was bring it home. And bring it home was around a narrative that there were a lot of international alumni that were floating around all over the world. We wanted to appeal to them, and we wanted to get that sense of nostalgia of coming back to the place where you went to university. Bring it home was a language and a narrative that we weaved or wove, whatever the right English word is, throughout that case for support. And so if you can, it's not a make or break, it's not a must have, but it can be quite interesting if you can have a key concept that you can hang everything together with. Sherry, you had a thought.
I just wanted to say that sometimes it's useful before you start even getting into your proposal to write just amongst your team an executive summary, which shouldn't be more than 100 words, because then you can absolutely see where you're going with the ask, what needs to change. And it's very useful to use the team if you can, because we all come with such different perspectives and such different thought processes that it's sometimes that's what helps you get the 100-word mark into being. And then when it lands on someone's table and they read 100 words, they're like, yes, I want to read more. So that's your brilliant starting point, is to just get what you do and what you're asking for, what the solve is, into 100 words.
Fantastic. So as Sherry said, keep it short and sharp in the beginning, call it an executive summary, call it an intro, but give context upfront. Don't leave people guessing. And very importantly, and I'll come back to this time and time again, show why you are the solve. Don't spend 10 pages outlining the problem. The problem is often known. You can get to it. You can articulate it in a very short, sharp way, but say why you're the solution. And say what you want upfront. Be very explicit around goals. Be very explicit around the ask. The more nebulous and the more vague you are, the less likely chance is that you will get any entity, whether it be an individual, a corporate, or a grant maker, to bite, as we call it. Then we do this dance of having to solve for two components. Number one, you need to show, and these don't have to be in exactly this order. This is just a guideline, but there are two things we always make sure that in any proposal we do, we hit the marker of showing an understanding of the macro environment, as well as telling what we would call micro, which is a single story. So somewhere in this proposal, you have to show your own scale and impact. This is where data comes in. I think Nicolette pointed it out beautifully earlier, where she said, show the data points, show the statistics, show that there is rigor and evidence behind what you've done, and talk impact. Don't get too internally focused. Say the impact that you've had on your community, and also often show that you know what's happening in the sector. No, the funder wants to know that you're not operating in a silo, and you have an understanding of the trends, the dynamics, some of the partner capabilities, understanding of your, as I call in branding, competitor environment, but call it the partner environment. And just show again that macro view of the world, both around your scale and impact, as well as an understanding of the sector. Then somewhere along the line, you also need to segue into more of a micro view of the world. And here, good old testimonials. Tell an actual story. So this isn't done in the third person. First person, written with quotes, written by an individual, works incredibly well. And again, this is about showing the impact on the ground. There's various ways you can do testimonials. You saw in that Donald Gordon example, you could have an expert from inside your organization. You could showcase a beneficiary. There's multiple ways to do it. But first person testimonial quotes, actual stories have to be included in there somewhere. And as I said, if you can stretch to a video, incredible. It adds huge impact, especially to a fundraising proposal that lands digitally. You can just pop the video on a YouTube link, or you can hide it and host it somewhere. We can give you some tips around that. But if not a video, make sure that you populate your proposal with beautiful, rich imagery. Even any kind of smartphone these days with just a little bit of tweaking and the correct lighting can give us a view of the communities we serve. And again, that just adds such a richness to the proposal. So that's all kind of upfront context type stuff. Then you really have to get into the nitty gritty, and you got to show people in meticulous detail how you plan to use the money, when you plan to use it, and what your project plan is. And this is obviously where the detail comes in. Be really explicit about where that money's going. It shows due diligence. It shows that you're not just winging it, and you can account for it, and there's credibility there. Often a component that we see that people are asking for, funders are asking for, is sustainability. So yes, we're going to give you this pot of money, but how are you being smart with it? How are you showing, if this is pilot, how you're going to get to scale? Show how you're using it in clever ways that ensures the sustainability of the organization. Funders, regardless of who they are, want return on investment and they want longevity. So they are more likely to back an organization who they believe has longevity and footprint than something that solves an immediate need but then is going to disappear. And reporting, again, this is a whole thing, and it could be an entire discussion on its own. And different levels of funders require different rigor, but show how you are going to report back on that spend, and show them again that you've got the credibility in that instance. Sherry, your thoughts?
I just wanted to say that often companies really appreciate if you put in as part of your timeline that there will be a little bit of research happening during the funding spend and iteration to what you've done, so that you can look at what you've done, you can see what's working, you can factor in change and make it work better. So they appreciate that you're not going to just assume it's all going to work, that you're going to be monitoring it yourself, and you're going to be reporting back to them on what has worked and what hasn't, and what you're going to be changing.
Super. And then again, we always look in our proposals is we focus so much on the what, absolutely, that's the bulk of it, but don't forget about the who. Often in your organization, you're also selling yourselves as a point of credibility and a point of contact, and get specific around who's going to be responsible for what, and show the funder that you have the required capabilities across your organization to solve for all components of whatever the project may be, and include a key point of contact. The same for funders holds true, the same as we have the ask or the desire to have a key point of contact and an actual human being. Funders also want that. They want to know that they can form a relationship with wherever and whomever they're giving their money to. And so you need to be explicit about the who is the key point of contact on your side. And then again, what always helps, and it may or may not be appropriate depending on the type of proposal you're creating, but to show previous experience is a huge credibility factor. If you can get endorsement from any individual or organization who you've worked with before, this is the quintessential kind of recommendation or testimonial component from a previous funder. And if you can show them some of the previous projects that you've done, how you smart in the way that you spend, what's different about what you do, it's a really nice way to show your methodology. So again, case studies and showing history and credibility points from other projects is hugely valuable. We haven't put on here kind of conclusions and summaries, but there generally is usually a top and a tail. So this is somewhat overarching, and we have developed it with the intention to keep it broad. There are probably a whole lot more elements that you could include. But yeah, this is very much an initial guide to work from. Cherry, your thoughts?
I wanted to just add that when you are doing your budget, one of the key failures of NGOs is to not budget in for marketing. This is your time to to request specific funding for marketing in that budget. This is how you're going to put your story forward. This is how you're going to get to your target market, and funders really appreciate that. And not only do they appreciate it, it really positions you to be asking for money again, because once you have that money, you can then be doing the more expensive things like creating video and using tech that maybe you don't have budget for right now. So just don't forget to add that in as part of your branding and marketing as part of your budget.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that summarizes where we wanted to get to from an input perspective. I know that we don't have as much time as we'd hoped, but I'd like to open it up now for questions. The only other thing, and I will put this in the slides, I'm not going to go back to it now, but just a reminder, and I've showed this in all previous sessions, and again, I'll stand on my soapbox, is have a look at this slide, because this comes from a piece of research we did where we spoke to funders and grant makers and individuals in the philanthropic sector, and we said, what are you looking for? And so I'll remind you to go back to this idea that they are looking, whomever they are, for ROI. Givers are like investment bankers. They want to back a winning horse. We've spoken about this very intentional framing of the solution versus the problem. We know givers want scalable projects. They want to know, where's this package? Where do you begin and end? That's why the Reach for a Dream example was so nice. Fund this thing. This is what's in the box. You may not have an actual box, but you can definitely package up what you're doing. There is an exercise of kind of following the money. If you're looking for funding, there's a way to start with your key stakeholders. As we've said, start with those organizations as closely aligned to you as possible. And don't forget to make the givers feel good and give them recognition as well. They want their logos out there. They want the pat on the back, and they want to be associated with step change. So if you can show how you can be part of, they can be part of your fabulous journey, again, that helps. So I am going to hand over to questions now, but hopefully that gives you all the tips and tricks that we possibly have in our mind to do this very challenging thing that is fundraising, and we'll take it from there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Megs. Thank you so much. We already got a question in the chat, and I also see Princess has a hand up. Let's start with the question in the chat. So Charmaine would like to know, how do you show that the cost of branding and marketing in a budget benefits beneficiaries or impacts thereof? Donors see this as an overhead expense and not linked to primary beneficiaries, and impacts and overheads are always specified and linked to a percentage of what donors want to contribute to.
Sorry. I think that's fair. Usually that number's around 10%, or sometimes it sneaks up a touch. Yeah, the answer, I mean, you're speaking to someone who has a... Yeah, go for it.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Basically, one of the things that you want to show your funder is that you are going to reach your target market. So if you frame it as this is the way that we can optimize what we're doing by getting to the target market, then that's not so much an overhead, but actually a necessity. Because there are a lot of fabulous things out there that people don't actually access, and that's the link that you're wanting to make, that you're using this money in order to get the beneficiary to benefit from what you're offering. I hope that answers it.
I hope that answers your questions, Charmaine. Just drop a text. Yeah, she said, got it, thanks. Perfect, thank you so much. And then Princess, I see you've got your hand up. Can you please go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you so much. I don't know if I'm going to phrase my question correctly, but I think I wanted to find out as to, is there organizations or people or individuals that can help NGOs like myself? I struggle, like I have not even hit like I keep hitting walls when trying to apply for funding. And of course, I think I may be doing a whole lot wrong, seeing what I'm seeing today as well. But I know that sometimes when you're not good at a specific skill, you can outsource it. And I think I'm at a point where, or maybe rather, I need direction. If anyone has an idea as to where can I go as an organization to get help of someone that can help us uh, package this fundraising properly and put it out there, because on my own I am definitely failing. I guess I'm just asking if there's any organizations, individuals that one can outsource and even pay to help us get fundraising and package ourselves better so that we can maybe get opportunities out there. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, absolutely. I think the answer is twofold, and I'm so happy I've already seen it happening in the chat. One is find a mentor. So just find someone who's done this before and is a little bit better at it than you, and just ask all the questions. I see there's some beautiful kind of I don't know if it's whether it's an agency or just a mentor who's in this world, but find your person. There's many people on the call today. I'm sure someone will raise a hand and just ask some of the questions. How do you do it? How do you get over this? Asking for money is tough, right? It's not in everyone's nature. So just have a mentor and have conversations. And then we can definitely put you in touch with, there are organizations like ourselves who offer services. Those services come at a cost, and the range is from there to there, right? So it is an opportunity to invest. But what I will counter that with and say is, you never want to hand over the fundraising core competency to sit external to your organization, because no one will vie for you like you will, right? There is passion and there's heart. So my view would be, get support in the creation of it. Get someone who can do the pretty pictures and put the brochures together, and who can help formulate your story. That is any organization that sits within marketing and branding. But I would urge you to keep pushing on building that skill within yourself and within your team, because it's critical to success. Don't know if that helps. Geraldine, you had a
It
thought.
does. It does.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you.
Yes, hi. Yeah, so I obviously run. I've got an NGO which I run, and then of course, I've got a consulting firm. And as part of my consulting firm, I actually do fundraising, and so I do fundraising for two organizations, which obviously I've then come into as an enterprise development, partner. The one, good thing about having, and I know, Megan, that perhaps you say, that let us not look at external, fundraisers. But the good thing, is when you're inside your organization, you don't see the picture, because you are so, closed up with your in organization. Whereas I think, if there's an outside fundraiser, you immediately see the big picture. You also have had experience with funders, out there. So you are able to, when I go to a funder, I would say, listen, I'm working on these 2 or 3 projects, okay? So I would look at, obviously, what, is the kind of objective that they're trying to reach with either their CSI, with either the enterprise development, or, with either, some of the projects that they have. And I would then say, well, let's look at, all 3 of these and see where we can help all of them, because they might have different impact, to communities. So I think, I'm a fundraiser, and, I'm not going to say I'm successful, at it. But what I can say is that, I do love the fact that I'm able, to talk to NGOs or organizations and help them to understand, one, how to solve the issue, two, what is solvable. Because sometimes people start organizations, and some of those organizations, are not there to solve, the challenge that the community has. It's more for bread and butter for themselves. So I have to look beyond that, and I'm saying, that let us look at all of those kind of things, and let us see where you, as the NGO, can, not an individual, as an NGO, can make an impact. What is also not out there that you have skills for. So I just wanted to raise, and say that, it is not as bad, Megan, to have a fundraiser, out there, especially I think if the person has got your best interest, at heart. So if you do find somebody that wants to help you, find somebody that has got a reputation, find somebody that has got your best interests in heart, and find somebody that don't want to have, I don't take percentages because I believe, that doesn't help. So we will negotiate and say, all right, you need this from me. We'll take you so many months, and then, we'll do the payment. When you get your funding, you're on your own. I will be there to support and guide in that. But I don't believe in percentages because I think that is a money-making thing. And I will leave it there. Thank you, guys.
Geraldine, I want to just add that I think that Megan, what Megan was saying was that don't hand these things over completely and go off and do your own work. That this is a team thing, that someone can hand you a piece of paper with their sort of prospectus on it and send you off to fundraise, but you have to be connected to that. So it's not like just, there's huge value in having an external fundraiser, but you have to not let it go completely. You have to be involved. It has to be a team effort.
Agreed. All right. I know we are a touch over time, so I'm very happy to stay on a little bit if there are any specific questions from anyone, but I'll hand back to Zamo for the wrap up.
Thank you so much, Megs. And thank you, everybody, again. I'd set the session up till 11:15 in case there were any other questions that were going to come through. For those of you guys who have to jump off, I understand. And thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. And those of you guys who still have questions or maybe want to kind of hear a bit more insight from Megs and Sherry, please do stay on the line. But yeah, I'm looking at, there are no more questions in the chat. So I'm not sure if anyone else wants to maybe ask a question. I see Shane has got his hand up. Shane, please go ahead.
Thanks, Zamo. Hi, Megan and Amira. I think that's lovely, the presentation. I've been a fundraiser myself for 8 years in the education space. I've seen, pre-COVID and post-COVID environments, and predominantly there's, networking used to be much more of a thing pre-COVID. And somehow, events, networking, meeting, like-minded funders in a room have kind of slowly gone away, I would say, but some of it has come online, but some of it has gone away in physical presence. In your point of view as experts, what do you think? Where is that trend going? How do you organize like-minded funders to come into a room? How do you network better? Where are these events and things happening? I know there's quite a few, but where do you see this going? Because I think, face to face makes a difference when you talk to a funder, and you can actually, get the story and connect to the heart much more with sometimes your beneficiaries. And yeah, so just your thoughts around that and where the industry is going from a networking point of view. Thanks.
I mean, I have a view, because we're seeing this beyond fundraising, is a marketer's job these days is to beat an algorithm, right? Everything is so hands off. Everything feels so digital. This is a sample set of one, so N of one. Someone else might give you a very different answer, but I am all for in-person, real human beings. And we found in our own business is actually, if no one's inviting you to a table, make your own. We have a project where we've put convening sessions in as part of our strategy because we just couldn't get it together any other way. We couldn't create the impetus. We couldn't kind of connect the dots as we needed to. So my short answer is, I think the world is shifting to digital because digital means scale. Digital allows us kind of vetting systems. You pop your RFP into a machine learning and it picks up all the keywords and it spits you out a percentage of appropriateness. That's really hard for us. And I suppose I don't think this is the trend, but I hope that more coffees and conversations happen in the future, because I think that's how it happens. Don't know if that's helpful.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay, we've got a hand from Paul and then also from Mika. So I think, Paul, you can go first, and then directly afterwards, then Mika can go. Paul, you can ask a question. Okay, Paul, I don't know if you've unmuted yourself, but if you are
Okay,
talking, you're not
sorry.
unmuted as yet. There you go.
Sorry about that. I battled to find the button.
No worries.
Firstly, can I thank the team, as ever, an excellent presentation, much appreciated. Mine was a very, did put it in the chat, but I think it may have been missed. I lost connection when you were showing the last slide. Is it possible that that could either be reshown or I don't know when the presentations are being sent out?
There we go. I'll pop it up for you now if you want to just grab a look at it. But we will send this full pack afterwards, and Zama will share it out, so you can have a view of it there as well.
Much appreciated. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Paul. Mika, I don't know if you want to go with your question.
Yeah, so mine's just a comment. I was actually in a meeting with Papillon also on branding this week, and just a really useful reminder from them, which I think ties into this, is that how important it is to actually have your brand in place and used everywhere across your funding proposals, across your stationery, across your emails, across whatever you've got, so that people can actually recognize you. It's all well and finding funding proposals, but if you don't carry your brand through and your colors and your logos and things like that, then you do tend to get lost. And that's as an important part of presence. And I also just want to say thank you very much. There's a couple of things I'm working on, and I'm going to rework them after just rethinking with some of the tips that you've given. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. You're totally right. I suppose, yeah, brand is the cover all for all of this, but it's actually a very good point to put it into this module as well. Just a note on that, if there are any individuals who didn't attend module 1 and 2, they're definitely a precursor to this one, and it is all around of that branding stuff. So just to close the loop there, spot on and 100%.
Yeah, and I also will be resharing Meg's slides as well for those of you who might have missed them. So once she sends these ones, I'll share part 1, 2, and 3, so you can kind of follow them in order. Just to be able to reiterate what Meg has said, that she has covered a bit of that, but thank you so much for sharing that. Kimberly, I see you've also got your hand up. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you so much for today. I am Kimberly, so I'm the Sizanani Mentorship Program Manager. And I think I just wanted to give advice based on my experience, is that what myself and Valerie, the director, do a lot is just mostly show up. Like with this meeting, for example, it was just an hour, 15 minutes, but we gained so much knowledge from it. And also when people do introduce themselves, when people mention, I'm a fundraiser, ask them if you may contact them, ask them for their contact details. You know, even events that we go to events with our flyers, we'll network, we ask mentors in the program if they know any other fundraisers or anyone that specializes in what you need assistance with, because you obviously can't do everything yourself. And so networking, I absolutely agree with that. And yes, we are moving to, to a more tech based space, but I mean, there's Teams, there's Zoom. We get so much out of just reaching out and asking if we could just have, even if it's a 30 minutes with someone, introduce ourselves, tell them what we do and what we're looking for. And it's really reaped some really good benefits. So I think also look at the names in the meetings that you attend. Who does what? How can they help me as well? And how can we work together? I think that's very important. I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And then Megs, there's a question I missed in the chat. It was a question from Geraldine. I'm not sure if she's on here, but it might help other people as well. It was around what is the best way to report impact, direct or indirect? Do you need to have examples? So I'm going to assume this is for when you are actually putting your proposal together. How is it the best way for you to actually indicate impact? And then secondly, I've got another question here from Faith. Wait. She just wants your contact details, so I will get those for you. So not to worry, Faith. We'll be sharing those after that. But yeah, I don't know if you want to answer that first one, Megs, around indicating and showing for beneficiaries. How do you actually put that in your proposal?
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
I think that's part of what you were saying about showing the story. Like this is getting real examples of this is the impact. If it's asking in terms of how do you show what we've done, it's almost a proof of concept, like giving that incredible story that's already happened. And if the question is about how do you show impact posts, then you add into your proposal, we will be researching, and this is the methodology we're going to use in order to record what the before and after impact is. But if it's how you show the impact, this is what Meg's speaking about, found those golden stories that are real life impacts. That's what speaks to people when you see how your product has actually changed someone's personal life.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Sherry. And then I see you've got a hand from Caitlin and then one from Philippa. So I think these might be our two last hands, just looking at the time. So Caitlin, you can go first, and then directly after that, Philippa, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Samo. I just wanted to ask, also on the subject of impact, I did an impact course with Impact. They're an EU company, and they use something called the Impact Management Framework. Have you guys come across this? It's the breadth, depth, and persistence of impact, and they kind of recommend that you follow that framework when you do impact reporting. Have you guys come across this, and is it something that you think pairs quite well with the stories and the testimonials?
Okay, I will hand over to the experts on this. I've not heard about it, so I do not want to speak out of turn, but maybe Sherry and Megs have got a bit more to share on that. Megs, you muted. I'm not sure if you...
Sorry. I acknowledge not something that's on my radar, so I also don't feel that I can comment on it. I'll happily, if you want to pop a link or a URL, I will go and investigate and put my insight gathering hat on. But I don't want to. I wouldn't be able to comment on that now.
Me neither. I haven't seen it.
Caitlin, if you can just pop us the link, maybe to the website, and what I'll do is Megs will have a look at it, and maybe she can just kind of let you know. And maybe it could also be another resource for us to share with other people who may be interested in kind of figuring out how to actually report an impact. That might be a great tool for all of us to have a look at.
Sure. I'll happily do that. Thanks, Emma.
The only other comment just before Philippa, we get to your question, essentially from a data perspective, there are two chunks, okay, that we look at. You either get, and this talks to impact reporting, you get qualitative and you get quantitative, okay, from an insight perspective. So qualitative just means stories, narrative, testimonials. And quantitative is data, statistics, X percentage more than we were. We went from this number of beneficiaries to that number of beneficiaries. So the duality from an impact perspective is we always do this dance of story plus evidence points. So you want numbers, you want the graph that goes up, you want the circle that was this in 20 whatever and is now this big in 2024. So think statistics, numbers as a way to show impact, and then counter that with stories. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Just to comment on that, what we did with ours is, I think somebody mentioned Canva earlier, as an NPOs can get a free package on Canva if you're a nonprofit. It's completely free. The full version of Canva is free for nonprofits. So I would suggest everybody sign up to Canva, because they have the impact templates that one can use, and it literally gives you the graphics for where you just put in your own statistics and your own data. So, you know, you can make a little 10-page booklet on Canva and really just populate the graphics, the graphs with your own data, and save that as a template, and then you just update that every year with your own colors and fonts, and you know. So what we did with our organization is I created an impact brochure that I sent our funders so that they could see what we've done, because we were about to celebrate 20 years. And I wanted them to see what we've been able to do over 20 years. I wanted to show them impact. And all I'm going to do for our next year's funding proposal is just change that impact report into an ask. So I'm just going to adjust it slightly to make it that now I'm showing you our 20-year impact. What we want to do for the next 10 years is X, and we need your money. We can do Y. And it really just does hit home if it's in a picture form and you can embed videos and everything. So I would really suggest with impact reporting, you look at Canva templates. And then my only question was to say that there was also a question about the lotto. So we've had money from the lotto in the past, but it's becoming more and more difficult. I don't know whether they're still accepting applications. They've become very, very strategic with what they're looking for and who they're going to be funding. Obviously, gender-based violence is huge. Early childhood development is huge. So we are struggling to fit into their focus areas now. So my question is, what is happening with Lotto? And then is there another organization that is similar, that's kind of children here, animals here, old people here, food here, and you kind of can streamline your organization and approach this sort of national umbrella funder? Is there anything else besides Lotto that we could look at? Are you aware of anything, even if it's not local, international? No?
Sure. No, I mean,
I'm not aware of that, but I think you have to go onto different web pages and look up different philanthropic funds and family funds and things like that in order to find what is what's out there.
So Lotto, we don't really know. It's just they seem to have stopped taking calls. They've stopped.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard of anyone that we're working with that has received funding. We haven't approached directly in a very long time, and I cannot remember the last time anyone's mentioned even getting a cent out of there. So I don't know details, but they're definitely not on the radar in any form.
Right? So where's that money going? Just asking.
Yeah, it's good. It's a very valid
That's
question.
a very good question, Philippa. I agree with Meg's. Great question. I unfortunately also can't add any context to the lottery question. I think it's probably more on their side, where they have to kind of share with us as the people who are receiving the funds what is happening. Megs, I don't know if you guys have got a chance for one or two more questions, because I saw another hand. I see Annalee's got her hand up. So Annalee, please go ahead and ask your question. And then I saw another hand. I don't know if it was Nicolette. If you want to go after Annalee, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, everyone. Mine is just a comment. There was a call for proposals end of last year for the Lotto. Closing date was in August. We applied, and our organization received a site visit in April. Following up on more details, and we're promised to hear back from them in 5 months, which is not there yet, but so we are hopeful. We are hopeful.
Interesting. Good. There's proof of life. This is good.
Yeah, perfect. And also, just to add to that comment, thanks so much for sharing, Annalie. I also see Asavela put in the chat that the NLC said they'd they'd be opening on the 3rd term, so from September 2024 onwards. So I think maybe if you guys were funded by the lottery before, or you would like to look at it, they are looking like they will be opening their calls for proposals and funding in September 2024. So you can have a look at that. And then I don't know if it was accidental hand, but I don't see any other hand anymore. So I'm going to assume that we are good. And then any other questions that do come up, please just drop me a mail. I'll reach out to Megs and to Sherry just to ask them to answer those. And then it was such a pleasure, guys. Everybody, thank you so much again for joining us. It's always so good to hear from you guys, to learn, especially from all of you guys. I think we don't just leave with the knowledge from Megan and everybody else. You guys are also able to share so much information, and we really appreciate it. So thank you all. Wishing you all a fantastic day further and an excellent rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Go well.
Thank you, everybody.
Ciao. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye.